I love to get out into nature, but I don't have any company for this, and I have to go alone. I'll tell you about one of these trips now. It was summer. I left the office happy, having received a 2-week vacation from my boss. Looking forward to a great trip, I loaded everything I needed into the car and hit the road. The road was long. I did not expect to travel such a long distance in one day. I didn't take a tent with me because I could easily sleep in the car, folding out the front passenger seat. After 6 hours of driving on an almost straight road, I began to fall asleep. We had to find a place where we could park the car and spend the night in it. I didn't want to be on the side of the road, and it was impossible. I had to find some clearing, and around there was only forest and forest. I drove another 10 kilometers and suddenly noticed an exit from the road to the village. I was very surprised because who would live or build a dacha in such a wilderness? There are 200 kilometers to the nearest city. However, this village made me very happy, but after a few minutes my joy subsided. The village turned out to be abandoned. No, it was not destroyed, but abandoned. It looked as if all its inhabitants had left it about 3 months ago. But this did not stop me. In general, there was nowhere else to spend the night, and I parked the car near this village in a small clearing, surrounded on almost all sides by dense impenetrable forest. Having unfolded the passenger seat and sat down on it, I went to bed. However, my sleep did not last long. At about 3 in the morning, I heard a knock on the car window. A little chilled, I turned to the glass. The thoughts in my head were confused. Opening my eyes, I saw this. A strange creature was knocking on my window. His head looked like a stump that they started sawing, but not finishing it completely. They left it there. Its jaws opened almost 180 degrees, its mouth filled with yellow and sharp teeth. The skin was pale, the eyes were yellow, and the pupil in them was narrow and red. Instead of a nose, there were 2 holes. It was then that I experienced a feeling that I will remember for the rest of my life. Feeling of hopelessness. I couldn't do anything. If I get out of the car, I will only become an easier prey. I'll remain lying in a stupor. It will break the flimsy car window and get me. Then I was controlled by panic. I don't even remember when I decided to get into the driver's seat and try to get away from the monster, but that's exactly what I did. The engine roared, and in a panic I rushed on my iron horse far away from this damned village. However, the monster did not want to give up and ran after the car. I pressed the gas to the floor and drove as fast as I could, but the monster did not lag behind. It ran on all fours and slowly caught up with the car. It was already a meter from the car when I noticed a turn, which fortunately turned out to be an insurmountable obstacle for the monster. I pressed the gas until I reached the nearest town, and there I already booked a hotel room. I had nightmares about how that monster finally caught up with me and ate me. I woke up in a cold sweat when it was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Somehow I got up and went on to my relatives, but on the way I was afraid of everything in the world. Fortunately, I was returning back by a different route, not through the forest. Already at home, I remembered the DVR that was in the car and recorded everything that happened. Honestly, I didn't want to see what happened that night because even remembering it was terrible. However, curiosity overcame fear, and I pulled out the memory card from the recorder and inserted it into the computer. Having rewinded the video to the right moment, I saw the monster running out of the forest. I was surprised. How was it able to overcome the impenetrable thickets? But the worst thing awaited me ahead. At the moment when I was leaving the village in panic, the video recorder recorded a decomposed corpse, gnawed almost to the bones, in the window of a nearby house on a table in the center of the room. No, the villagers did not leave. Death overtook them right in their own homes. God, I almost went crazy at that moment. But somehow he was able to cope with the madness and began to live on, not thinking about the abandoned village that had become the abode of the monster. There is little mysticism in this story, but it is pure truth. It was 2 years ago, My relatives and I were going to the dacha. There was a small house. There was not enough space. We mainly came for fishing, but my late grandfather, may he rest in heaven, loved him very much, raised an apiary there, and there were beehives. We arrived late, somewhere between 01.00 and 03.00. At this time, of course, it was stupid to go fishing. We decided who would sleep where. There was little space, as I already said. 3 people lay down in the house. 1 was on the floor. I didn't lie down there. I decided to sleep in the car. So we said good night to everyone and went to bed. I got into the car, listened to the radio for a bit, and for about 30 minutes I couldn't fall asleep. But then I didn't even notice how I fell asleep. I hear a knock, as if someone is knocking on glass. I thought, friends, who else could there be? Stood up, and everything became quiet, as if nothing had happened. I wanted to fall asleep again, but I no longer wanted to sleep at all, and was tormented and tossing and turning. I heard the sound of a smoker, as if someone was smoking behind the house. I didn't get up, but wanted to quickly fall asleep. Time passed. I still couldn't fall asleep, and the sound of the smoker kept ringing in my ears. I decided to go out, smoke, and at the same time see what was behind the house. That sound was coming from there. As soon as I opened the door, everything went quiet. I ignored this sound, and opening the door slightly, smoked a cigarette. Before I had time to close the door, the sound of a smoker began to sound as if right outside the door. I tried to fall asleep, but I couldn't. The sound was getting closer. I got out of the car and went into the house to sleep, lay down on the floor, and I hear the sound of water, as if someone turned on a faucet. I got up and went to the kitchen, but there was no one there. Before I could get into bed, I heard heavy footsteps behind me. I turned around, but there was no one. I was lying there trying to sleep, and I heard a sound like someone tearing paper, and suddenly the plaster fell. First, she fell on the harness, and then on me. It was like this for the next 30 to 40 minutes. Water was running, footsteps, a sound as if someone was tearing paper. Then I fell asleep, and I already woke up in a very bad mood.